In the military, right, they say one of the keys to writing when you're writing in the Navy is they call the ABC: accuracy, brevity, and clarity, right? So if the admiral asks me, how many ships do we have out in port ready to sail, right? And you can say, sir, we got 6 ships, 6 frigates, and they're all up except one, right? What they don't want to hear is marketees, right? Sir, we've got amazing ships out there. Our ships out on the line are the best ship. They're going to go, please stop that and tell me what I need, okay? So this book is actually you can read this whole book in about 90 minutes, by the way. And the reason is when I was originally writing the book, I felt that in order to understand why the system is the way it is now and why now I have 100% success rate is because I wanted to highlight all my failings and all the mistakes I made as a coach so that you understand why the system that I have now is going to be more productive than if you start tweaking it, because I already had 5 years of not getting the ideal results as a coach. I got it on myself and the ones that followed. And that's the reason why Phallus After 40, the book you buy, is really half of the book I wrote, because the editor said, let's remove this other half so that if you ever want to write a book on coaching, you can explain all your failings. But to the reader that says, can you help me with Phallus After 40? They're not interested in my failings as a coach or how I finally got a system that now works. All they want to know, how is your book going to help me with my problem? And I think that's the biggest mindset shift, that when people want to write a book, you got to put yourself in the reader's point of view and you have to address their concern.
Okay, everyone, welcome back to the Living the Next Chapter podcast. We're here again with yet another amazing author. And if you love my guest a lot, which you will, you're going to love it. He's going to come on other shows as well and talk about more things. Eric's with me today. We're going to be talking about his book, Fat Loss After 40. I'm after 40, so you're talking to your target audience right here. Eric, welcome to Living the Next Chapter. Nice to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me on board.
It's going to be exciting. Eric, your background is extensive in your service to your country. I want to thank you, first of all, for stepping up and serving in the way that you have, and all of the places you've gone in this world, making a difference for your country and helping others at the same time. So thank you for doing that. Would love to kind of get a little of your backstory to share with everyone. We've had a chance to talk, but they haven't heard you yet. So let's fill them a little bit in on kind of your backstory and a little bit of how we got to today in writing a book.
Okay, so if you want a backstory, my friends say I'm doing the tour of the services because I've been in the U.S. Army, U.S. Air Force, and in the U.S. Navy. And I retired, so I won't be joining the Marines or the Coast Guard. But what happened was I joined the Army Reserve when I was in college, and I was a public affairs specialist and a journalist. And I really enjoyed the journalist job in the Army. While I was in the college and the Army, I was taking Chen style Tai Chi. And I remember asking my Sifu, like, what does somebody need to do to be really good in Tai Chi? And he said, well, all the high level practitioners practice acupuncture and Oriental medicine. So I wanted to, when I finished my bachelor's degree, I was going to get out of the military and I was going to dedicate myself completely to acupuncture and Oriental medicine. As I mentioned in another place, I was studying in Mercy College in New York. And I came back from New York to visit my parents on September 10th, 2001. I think we all know what happened on September 11th, 2001. And basically that event changed the course of my life because I said at that point, acupuncture can wait. I got acupuncture in my mind and in my hands, but I really wanted, instead of leaving the military, which is what I was like getting ready to do, I said, I'm going to do a 180. I'm going to join the military, active duty Navy, naval aviation. So that is what I did. I was in the Army. I did a stint in the Air Force for security forces. And then I joined the Navy as a naval flight officer. And people ask me, like, what's that? And, I tell them it's like Goose and Top Gun. You tell the pilots what to do. The accurate way to say is the pilot is in charge of the aircraft and the NFO is in charge of the mission. In my case, I did airborne signals, intelligence, and reconnaissance. And I was stationed in Spain. So in Spain, because my first language is Spanish, I was able to help both the squadron in interacting with both the Spanish base, which is Spanish base, the Naval Station Rota base is owned by the Spanish Navy. And we, as the U.S. Navy, merely rented a part where we fly, our aircraft out of. And a lot of people needed me, both in the military sense, like my boss, and also my peers, to talk to, like the telephone company, to talk to the landlords. And I found out that there is a program in the Navy called the Foreign Area Officer Program. And I think this is the best kept secret in the military, because I liked naval aviation, but I love foreign area officer. And the reason is because when 9/11 happened, they realized that there was this phrase that you can't surge trust. And surge is a military term that, when you need a lot of troops to go to war, you can, like an accordion, you can expand the military to accommodate more people. And then when wartime is over, like an accordion, you can contract and get, rid of a lot of people. And that way the military can fluctuate. Whereas other countries, their militaries is like a building. It's set in a way, it can't grow, it can't shrink. That's the way it is. So, you combine those things together, and in the military, fitness is a physical requirement. So what that means is, fitness is not optional in the Navy, right? In the Navy, you get physically tested twice a year. And if you ever fail 3 tests in a row, they kick you out. You're done, because physical fitness is a requirement. It's not optional, And because I had always needed to emphasize fitness and I studied physical education, I was following more or less a bodybuilding approach with a little bit of track and field and gymnastics thrown into it. But on my 6th operational flight, I had an experience that literally changed the course of my life again, like 9/11, because it takes about 2 years for somebody to get what they call their wings of gold. Whether you're a pilot or a naval flight officer, it's about $1 million worth in training. It's about 2 years in time frame.
Wow.
But when you get to the squadron is when you really learn the specifics, and that's when you can earn the respect of your peers. When you get your wings, one instructor said, "Hey, just so you know, when you go out in town, don't tell other Navy people that you're wing naval aviators, because if you don't have any experience in the fleet, that they're not going to take you seriously." And I go, that makes sense, because I don't know if you saw the Michael Jordan documentary, The Last Dance. Have you seen it?
Yeah.
There's a saying that he did there, which I think applies to all of us. He said that when he joined the Chicago Bulls, being 18 years old, there were a lot of stuff that he saw that he did not like. But because he realized he was the F and G, which is freaking new guy. Well, the military will use a more strong F word, right? But he said that he knew he couldn't just say, stop doing code, we're going to train or whatever. He said he had to let his performance do the talking for him to earn the respect of the team. And then eventually, as he started maturing, the coach started leaning on Michael Jordan to exercise leadership. So on my 6th operational flight, I'm not still fully trusted, right? Because I'm new in my squadron. We're flying overland Iraq, and it's 2004, so they're beheading people, if you got caught, and we lose an engine. And when we lose an engine, the aircraft commander, right, who's in charge of the aircraft and the safety of the people in that aircraft, comes on the ICS, the interconnection system, which is the headsets, and he said, "We just lost an engine. It's going to force us to descend to MANPAD range," and MANPAD means Man Portable Air Defense System. So it's like the shoulder-fired Stinger, air defense. Yeah. And he said, "If you see a corkscrew trail of smoke, you got to let me know immediately, because that means we're being fired upon and I have to take evasive action." So when I'm hearing this, on my 6th flight, I really thought we were going to die. I thought we were going to get shot down. I thought plenty of guys with man pads, and they're going to see us and they're going to shoot us down and I'm going to be dead or captured. I really thought it was going to happen. And the only way I can explain it is, for some reason, when you think you're going to die, if you think it's for real, your mind plays the life review program. And I literally went through my whole life, probably less than a second. And what happened is that I really made a decision, and I call it making a decision from the depth of your soul, that I really wanted to live. And as you probably can infer, I didn't die on that flight. The aircraft was not blown up. But when I landed, I felt like I had been given like a second lease on life. And what I did is I switched from the traditional bodybuilding approach and I just started to research anything having to do with health, anti-aging, youthing, and longevity, along with fitness. So I would have a complete program with my goal being to live as long as I can, as best as I can. And so that's really the inception of how my military and physical education and acupuncture, which in my way, acupuncture also feeds into this major concept of health. And then by having this experience where I thought I was going to die, it made me really reevaluate how I was doing this whole fitness thing. And I incorporated major changes, some of them that made it to the book, Fat Loss After 40.
Nice. When we talked earlier in our pre-chat, you gave me a great illustration about how taking care of your body can keep you from injury. And you gave me an illustration of being flexible and how flexible you are. And I told this story to my wife, and she's like, yeah, I can do what Eric's saying, and I can't. So I know that I'm in trouble. But you gave a great illustration of if you kind of stick your finger straight up in the air and you make an L with your hand and your thumb's pointing out and your finger's pointing straight up, how far you can bend your head down to touch the ground. For me, I can go like hardly at all. My wife, no problem. She can touch her head to the floor, no problem, with her feet crossed. So your legs crossed. So you were saying that in times of emergency or accident, your body will take your head down to the ground possibly. And in that moment, if you are not limber and your muscles are able to do that move, that's what's going to cause tearing and injury and all kinds of stuff to your body. And I had never thought of it that way. And I was very amazed that you explained it so well to me. And you can expand on this for the listeners. But that gave me a great visual of your body's going to do what it has to do in a time of necessity.
So
right?
Do your guys get to see images, or it's just voices?
We'll have the video available too, but I want to explain it for the audio audience as well, that if you can stick your hand straight up in the air and then pinch your finger to your thumb, how far does your body go in your spine and your body? How far low can you go before you can't go any lower? And you're saying we need to be more limber, more stretched out, more the ability to do that. So if we do have an accident and our body does that move that we can't do, that we don't hurt ourselves. And I just love the picture of that. So expand on that, because I think that's really important.
So, it's interesting because I remember we also talked that, the reason the physical body is important in life is because it is the vehicle of our soul or personality or spirit, whatever term you like, to carry out your will in the world. Okay. So without a body, you can't achieve all the good things you want to do in life. Right. So that's a given. Good. And so I also started to notice that a lot of men, especially men, when they get to a certain age, which is around 35 to 40, if they let themselves go, and what happens is because people see themselves every day, the weight gain is gradual, and they don't notice until usually there's a picture or a video, and they'll say, "Who's that fat guy?"
Yeah.
And then they realize it's them. And in the case of men, this is the word I heard a lot, they feel disgusted. And when they feel disgusted, they want to take massive amounts of action to rectify the problem. I'll give you a real life example. In the case of one person I knew in Miami, he had been an explosive ordnance disposal guy. And in the Navy, the EOD, explosive ordnance disposal, is trained by the Navy SEALs. So the EOD guys have Navy SEALs levels of fitness because the Navy SEALs are the guys that train them until they go into their specialty, which is the explosive ordnance disposal. All right. So this guy had left the Navy with that type of a fitness, and now he had a job, a government job, as what they call a GS job, a government service. So he was now Department of the Navy or Department of Defense government employee as a political military analyst, which is what I was also as an active duty naval officer when we were serving together. So to further his career, he was getting a master's degree from the University of Miami. So this guy was working a full day at Southcom, and then he was working on his master's degree, and he was sleeping about 4 hours a day, right? So of course, in horrible food, so of course he got fat, according to him. When he finally finished his degree, he was like, I'm so glad I'm done. He felt, what's the word? Disgusted. And what he did is he went downstairs to the gym, and he probably went into his mind. And I think he had so much mental fortitude that he could go into his mind and say, when I was in shape, I was doing the following with the Navy SEALs and DOD. And I think he forced his body to do that. The problem was that he pushed his body so hard, he ruptured his liver and he had to go to emergency, which leads us to the crux of what you're asking. And that's, so when I give seminars, I usually ask, who here has heard of David Goggins? And I'll say about 60 to 80% of the hands will come up. And then I'll say, hey, of those of you who know who David Goggins is, how many of you have actually read his book, Can't Hurt Me? Now it's only 10 to 20%. But the reason I say that is because when I was reading this book, and I think it's 2018, 2019, on the back of the book, he's saying, David Goggins said that he had 2 open heart surgeries, and he was kind of making peace with dying. He's saying, well, if it's my time to go, he felt that he had lived more at 38 as a Navy SEAL than a lot of people that are 80s that have never, done the things he's done. So he was making peace. But then in the book, it says, but then I remember this guy. There's this guy called Joe Hippensteel, and he would go to the San Diego Navy base, and he had a stretching and range of motion regimen that has been credited with preventing surgeries in Navy special warfare. So Navy Special Warfare is both the Navy SEALs and the SWIC boat crews, which is the boat crews that support the Navy SEALs. Yeah. So I'm going, who is Joe Hippensteel and how do I learn this system? Because in the same book, David Goggins says that 5 years later now, he's able to run 100-mile ultras because of the system. So I'm going like, I need to learn the system before I leave the Navy.
Right.
Interestingly, Joe is actually a civilian. So this is not a system invented by the Navy. It's invented by Joe, who's a civilian. It just so happens that he connected with the Navy SEAL community and he was working there. And that's how David Goggins learned the system. So now I'm going like, I need to learn the system. And what happened is that, now the power of marketing, because of that book, Joe said he was getting like 400 inquiries a day. So he couldn't respond to them. And he had like a website from the 1990s. And I'm not trying to order like a video, give me a DVD, give me a book. Like I'll buy anything, what is this thing? So eventually there's a mass email that comes out and with a blind carbon copy so nobody can see who else got it. But it's saying, hey guys, you're getting this email, you've expressed interest. We're getting 400 emails a day. So this is a blanket email to let you know there's like 3 options. There's going to be an online course, there's going to be a 3-day seminar, and there's going to be an instructor course. So I reply yes to all of them. I want to do all of them. So I end up taking the instructor course. Now to go to, so that people understand, going to what you say, what did Joe figure out? Joe figured out that there's certain ranges of motion where when you achieve them is when you start getting out of pain, you start healing, and you maximize your performance. So now for the people, if they can see this, right?
Yeah.
So imagine this is a human being, and this is the trunk, and this is the head, and this is the forehead.
Yeah, pointing straight up.
First one is forward. So the 4 things for the lower, and I love that he made it stupid simple. It's binary. It's yes or no. So there are only 4 things you're going to test is forward spinal flexion, lateral spinal flexion. You're also going to test for spinal rotation, and finally spinal extension. So what happens? The standard, if you can visualize yourself, if you were to sit down on the floor and you cross your legs, could you get your head to touch the ground? So if going back again to my finger as the human being, if this is the person sitting down and this is their spine and this is their head, if you can get your head on the floor, all it means is that you meet the standard for forward spinal flexion. What does that mean? It means, going back to what I was explaining, if, let's say, military, active careers, there's a guy driving a Humvee, and there's an IED that explodes behind him, right? If he has this much range of motion, and he was driving, and there's an explosion coming from behind, and it forcefully pushes him all the way down, there's no issue, because, he has this range of motion, and he was forcefully pushed here, you're good to go. Now, the problem is this. What happens if a guy's range of motion is only up to here, right? There's an explosion behind the guy. And now he can't move further than here, but the explosion forces him
down
all the way
right.
to here. Well, what do you get? You get injury. Those muscle fibers that were so tight are going to be ripped. And that's an injury. And in the SEAL teams, for example, if there's a surgery, they remove you from the teams for 12 weeks, right? So the point is there a way, especially for people over 40, before they get crazy with their workouts, to actually reset their range of motion so that when they do start to train, the pain is decreased, their performance is going to be better, and also it's going to be safe. Because if you get really excited and motivated and you go do something crazy on your first day and you get injured, first of all, it's going to set you back 3 to 4 months, but it might also lead to this thing where some people start adopting the mindset that, well, maybe it's time for me to calm down, right? And I'm 50 right now. I'm 50. I'm doing 40-mile paddles in 2 weeks. I'm doing parkour. I'm doing what my body can. I mean, I did have to give up Muay Thai. And the reason being is I could warm up and I could do all the kicks required, but then that night I couldn't sleep because my TFL, my tensor fasciae latae, and my glute minimus would get so tight that it would just be painful throughout the night, and I couldn't get a wink of sleep. So I had to give up Muay Thai and heavy squatting, and I've adapted now by doing, long paddles with a veteran crew and parkour and certain exercises that I've modified, but I keep going. And that's why this range of motion thing, when I do the fat loss after 40 program with people, there's no exercise for 30 days. And the reason there's no exercise for 30 days is twofold. It's one, to show the person that they're going to have the most drastic results from nutrition and lifestyle. You're not going to go crazy doing 4-hour workouts and eating a bad diet and coming out of it, especially if you're 40. So the first thing is to have a success experience where they drop 10 to 15 pounds in 1 month without exercise. But the other part of it is to fix the lower back of people. The number one thing that hurts most people over 40 is usually lower back or shoulder or neck, right? But the lower back is crucial because you have to fix the lower back to fix the lower body and the upper body, because the lower back and the pelvis is what the body uses to transmit all the power from the ground to the upper body. So, all the power that you generate from the legs when you're using something with your hands, you need the lower back and what people call the core, which is a lot more than just your abs, right? It's your abs, it's your obliques, it's just transverse abdominis, all the musculature of the lower back as one unit. That's your core. And that's what transfers power from the lower body to the upper body, because people are eating a lot of processed foods that are highly inflammatory, and because people are living sedentary lifestyles.
Right.
The best way to guarantee both results and have it be done in the most safe and effective manner is to focus on a carnivore approach for 30 days to lower inflammation and to incorporate the Navy SEAL stretches, specifically the lower back series, during the first month, so that at the end of a month, they've dropped 10 to 15 pounds. They did 30 days of an elimination diet that is going to help their pancreas to decrease insulin sensitivity. And then they end with a liver cleanse. And what happens is at the end of those 30 days, without doing any exercise, without doing anything crazy, the person is thinner, right? So they're motivated. They want more. A lot of their pains might go away related to the lower back, knees, and ankles. By clearing their liver, it gives them a boost of energy. Their endurance might go up, and it just increases your overall well-being. So at the end of 30 days, they're going like, I want to work out. So there's a very big difference between feeling you're forced to work out and doing things you don't like because you want to drop weight. It's a completely different thing to be at the weight where you feel so good that you want to start working out. Does that make sense?
It does. It does. And that's why I love talking about your book, because you not only lay this out for us in such an amazingly simple and easy to follow way, but you also have the coaching side that goes along with it, where you actually put yourself out there to your clients and your students, and you have an accountability piece. Because when I look at a weight loss book or a health book, it seems one-sided. It seems like I get the book, I read it, I'm responsible, and I have no one to be accountable to finish the project, finish the plan, and there's no one there over my shoulder tapping me saying, "Hey, let's go, let's get an update." So, talk about the book more, Fat Loss After 40, and then let's jump in after we talk about the book, and specifically, then we're going to talk about the coaching side of it as well. So, Eric, kind of take us through this.
So the book is called Fat Loss After 40, which you can get on Amazon.com, and you can get it both in print and Kindle. It's extremely affordable. It's like $15 for the hardback book, like $7 for the Kindle. So the price is not an issue, because the private coaching was $3,000 for the 3-month program.
Yeah.
But what I've started to learn is when I did my very first coaching program, I felt such a huge amount of responsibility to my clients that I wanted to truly under promise and over deliver. But the problem was that I was giving them so many things to do in the span of a week that when that week came, they couldn't do all the things I asked. So they started feeling like they were letting me down or inadequate, or that they were behind the power curve, and they stopped showing up. They started saying, "Hey, I'll listen to the recording because I won't be able to make the call." So my very first Fat Loss After 40 coaching program, I only had a 40% success rate, meaning 40% of the people did everything as outlined and they got all their results. And 60% of the people kind of picked and chose, and they got some benefit, and they all say, "Oh, we love your stuff." But I go, "Yeah, but you didn't achieve the result that you were supposed to." And what I felt horrible, because like in the military, if I'm a military instructor, if I'm a military aviation instructor, and only 40% of my guys graduate, that's horrible in my mind. So I started going, well, how can I transmit this in a better fashion? So it took me 5 years to hone my coaching to the point of where it is now, which is right now when I do private coaching, it's 100% success rate. And that is because I have to be selective with who I can help. And let's be honest, like, if you have an endocrine disorder, you need to go see an endocrinologist, right? If you got, PCOS, it might not work because you have an endocrine issue that needs to be resolved before you can do the things that work for quote unquote normal people. So, once we remove the health cases out of the way, and we're talking about a basically normal person that's, 35 to 60, that's let themselves go. And, usually, like I say, the question that I hear the most is this, or the complaint I hear the most is this, Eric, when I put on 10 to 15 pounds in my 20s and 30s, I would just, eat a little stricter, work out a little bit more, and I could drop 10 pounds in about a week or two.
Yeah.
And since now, no matter what I do, I can't seem to lose the weight. Right. That's where Fat Loss After 40 comes in. And that's why the first 30 days, because, how do you coach somebody that hasn't trained in 5 or 10 years, right? I can't tell you to go run 4 miles, right? I can't tell you to go David Goggins on this thing because I'm not physically there. Mm-hmm. So I had to learn through experience to only give people as much as they can do, but they need to have success experiences. So that's why I streamlined the thing where you're only working on 2 things at a time. Good. Just 2 things. Yeah. But there's also what you were talking about, the daily accountability. So when I do private coaching with clients, once we start, I actually give them my private cell phone number. And every morning when they get up, they get on the weight scale and they're going to text me their weight. And that is how you keep the accountability portion going. Because look, like I told somebody else, the Fat Loss After 40 program, even though it's been going on since 2015 or 16, the principles have always been the same. Control insulin, engage in movement, and clean your liver out. That's it. Those are the 3 principles. Then it's a matter of, well, how do I do that? And then it became a matter of, well, how do I teach that more effectively? And that's where I like to talk to people in terms of there's good, there's better, and best. Because every time you have a book with guidance, for some reason, people always like to go, well, can I do this? Can I do that? They want to tweak it. And I also learn when you coach people, it's unless they're paying you a lot of money and there's a lot of trust, it's hard. You don't want to go, no, don't do that. You're wrong. Right. Yeah. And I mean, unless you've already got that level of trust or this person is really serious. But sometimes what I've learned is, when we talk about Fat Loss After 40, I recommend a 30-day carnivore diet as a reset. And they go, well, can I eat this? well, how about this sauce? Oh, can I eat eggs? And I go like, did I stutter? I said carnivore. That's red meat for 30 days.
Yeah.
So when people start like trying to argue or negotiate, what I've learned to do is this. It's like, look, you can do whatever you want, honestly. Like, all I'm saying is, if you want to get the best possible result that I can give you, then follow the guidance to the letter of the book. What I'm saying so far is if you follow my guidance, you should be able to drop 10 pounds in 1 month minimum. So it should be 10 to 15 pounds. So let me say I could guarantee 10 pounds if you follow what I say. Now, if you throw in guacamole and eggs and chicken, well, it's not bad, but maybe you're going to get 6 pounds of weight loss in a month instead of 10 to 15 pounds. So that's why I go, you can do whatever you want, but do you want to have good results? Do you want to have better results, or do you want to have the absolute best results that you can get? If you're going to do 30 days of sacrifice to achieve something, wouldn't you want to have the highest return on investment?
Right.
So if you're already going to be doing this, why don't you do it to try to get the most amount of benefit for the 30 days that you're investing in it, right? And that's how that usually works.
There it is. I love it. The other thing too, Eric, is we got authors that are listening to the podcast and they're looking at a blank page. They want to write a book. They're hearing the inspiration coming through the mic as they listen to you as a new author and sharing what you know and how you tie that to a coaching program is excellent. You mentioned something though about within the military, something like an ABC framework that really could help a new author as well. All of us could kind of learn from this, but can you kind of break down that ABC thought that you had earlier? I'd like to expand on that too.
So in the military, right, they say one of the keys to writing when you're writing in the Navy is they call the ABC: accuracy, brevity, and clarity, right? So if the admiral asks me, how many ships do we have out in port ready to sail, right? And you can say, sir, we got 6 ships, 6 frigates, and they're all up except 1, right? What they don't want to hear is marketese, right? Sir, we've got amazing ships out there. Our ships out on the line are the best ship. You know, they're going to go, please stop that and tell me what I need. Okay. So this book is actually really, you can read this whole book in about 90 minutes, by the way. And the reason is when I was originally writing the book, I felt that in order to understand why the system is the way it is now and why now I have 100% success rate is because I wanted to highlight all my failings and all the mistakes I made as a coach so that you understand why the system that I have now is going to be more productive than if you start tweaking it, because I already had 5 years of not getting the ideal results as a coach. I got it on myself and the ones that followed. And that's the reason why Phallus After 40, the book you buy, is really half of the book I wrote, because the editor said, let's remove this other half so that if you ever want to write a book on coaching, you can explain all your failings. But to the reader that says, can you help me with Phallus After 40? They're not interested in my failings as a coach or how I finally got a system that now works. All they want to know, how is your book going to help me with my problem? And I think that's the biggest mindset shift, that when people want to write a book, you know, it's tempting to write a story like, here's what happened to me, here's what I did, or you're writing chronological style. You know, it started on this day and here's everything that happened and here's the end date, right? And that's okay. But what that was really drilled down into is that the book has to be 100% you focused. And what that means is, instead of saying, I have been coaching clients and blah, 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 you translate into, if you want to drop 10 pounds, what you can do is you can choose to do a 30-day carnivore reset. And at the end of those 30 days, you can follow it with a liver cleanse and you will lose 10 to 15 pounds. You see how it's all you?
Yeah.
Not like, you know, I really struggled with getting people to drop 10 to 15 pounds because I first did this wrong. And you see how it's a completely different thing? It's like, I don't care about you did wrong. That's on you. How can I lose the weight?
Right.
And so whatever book you're writing, you got to understand, you got to put yourself in the reader's point of view, and you have to address their concern. You know, so this book is called Fat Loss After 40. So a person picking it up, all they want to know is, how is this going to really help me with fat loss after 40? Your personal failings or what you think you discovered in coaching, give two,
Yeah.
what about.
Yeah.
It's about making the book talk to the reader directly and helping them solve their problem.
It's great. And that's actually a nice carryover into podcasting as well, because I know a lot of people love podcasts. I do. And that's the idea, is we're not talking to everyone. We're not writing to everyone. We're not podcasting to everyone. We're podcasting and speaking to one person. And that's what we wanted in this episode, is we want to talk to that one person. So, Eric, I'm setting you up for a nice swing across the plate here. The person listening is battling with their weight. They're battling. They've given up. In some cases, they've tried other things. Hasn't worked for them. This book is designed for them. Your course, everything you have to offer us as listeners, is designed for us. Give us that taste beyond what we've already talked about. What's some inspiration to get the book and how we can practically implement this book the day it arrives on our doorstep? What do we do?
Excellent. So like the title says, it's fat loss after 40. So a 20-year-old was, 8-pack abs, immediately said, well, that's book not for me. And that's good, right? So it's only going to, the title in itself self-selects the people that want to read it and the ones that don't, right?
Yep.
But the main thing is, because the title of the book is Fat Loss After 40, a simple system to reduce inflammation, reset your body, and restore health. Did I talk about how to look good naked? No, because unfortunately, the fitness industry of today, right, is focused around aesthetics and sex appeal. And there's nothing wrong with aesthetics or sex appeal. I think the problem is when you make that your primary, sometimes you can sacrifice your health, because if it's all about looking a certain way, then you can put whatever in your body to achieve that, even if it shortens your life, right? So what happens with people over 40 is that they feel they're behind the power curve, and they're tempted to do an ungodly amount of exercise that ends up injuring them.
Right.
And what I'm saying is, how about we slow down and actually fix? I think most people over 40 are a collection of injuries. I know I am. My medical record is like this.
Yeah, exactly.
What we're saying is, why don't we reduce the inflammation, work on your range of motion, and clean your liver, and let's see what happens after 30 days. I know what happens if you do it. You're going to drop 10 to 15 pounds, right? Your lower back pain is going to go away, or it's going to be greatly reduced. And you're going to be in a much healthier place, where if you now start adding physical movement, right? Now it's going to be something that you're actually wanting to do. Because at the end of the day, here's the other thing I really like about this. And I think we talked about it in when we're talking, like, if you ask a overweight person, right, what do you want out of this? They'll say, man, if I can drop 20 pounds, I'm happy. If I can fit into my jeans, I'm happy, right? And that's okay. But that's like a very small goal. What I've noticed happens is, if you take people on this journey and then they drop 10 to 15 pounds in the first month, that builds momentum, because there's nothing more demotivating than killing yourself and sacrificing yourself and have nothing to show for it. That's why, think about the regular option. If you listen to the traditional fitness advice, they say, try to remove 3,500 calories throughout a week, which means you should be losing 1 pound a week, right? Which means that you can aim to choose 4 pounds in 1 month through caloric restriction. When people do caloric restriction, they don't feel good. I've done it. It sucks. Okay. But they're focusing on that goal. What I am saying is, because I've tried it both ways, if a person is overweight and you say option A, do caloric restriction, feel miserable, lose 4 pounds in a month, or option B, do carnivore reset for 30 days, fix your lower back, clean your liver, drop 10 to 15 pounds in the same amount of time. Which one do you want? Everybody says, I want to drop 10 to 15 pounds or more if I can. Thank you very much. Nobody has ever told me, no, Eric, I want to drop 4 pounds a month. Nobody's ever told me that. Right. So then you go, okay, well, how do you go about doing that? If you want to do the 1 pound a week through caloric restriction, there's tons of information out there to do it that way. Starve yourself, exercise like a madman or a mad woman, and then drop your 4 pounds in a month. And then the minute you get off it, you'll gain them back with a vengeance. Or how about we fix your body? That collection of injuries that we all are. How about we reduce the inflammation by a 30-day elimination diet that's also going to give your pancreas a rest? Because, you hear terms nowadays like insulin sensitivity. Okay, well, what does that mean, right? And you go, well, how do you get there, right? Well, what happens when people eat a lot of processed carbs, a lot of sugary snacks? You constantly spiking your insulin. So what happens when you overuse and abuse something? So let's say your pancreas, right? That's where you develop this insulin sensitivity. So what do you think happens when you give yourself the gift of a 30-day elimination diet where you're not eating any carbs or processed carbs at all? You basically don't turn on your pancreas for 30 days or very minimally. So what happens when you come after the 30 days, start reintroducing carbs slowly into the diet? Now your body's able to process them a lot better. And the other thing is that people don't realize that, the liver is the body's main detoxifier, but the liver also has a very important role in your body's metabolism. So when you're over 40, if the liver is overburdened in that, being the body's main detoxifier, it doesn't have all the energy acquired to really do really good on that metabolism thing. And that metabolism thing is what is the bottleneck for a lot of people over 40 regarding fat loss. That's why they feel like, look, I'm working out, I'm eating right, and I'm not dropping the weight. And that is very frustrating. So that's why when you're told on day one, no exercise for 30 days, that already that takes a load off your mind.
Right.
That already is all right.
Yeah.
Then you say, all you got to do is drink meat, eat water. And then at the 2-week mark, I teach them the range of motions for the lower back. Now, the only thing is in the book, I do not include the Navy SEAL stretching regimen because when I took the course, and I didn't sign an NDA or anything, but he asked, could you please not put it in print? And, I'm honoring that request from Joe. Mm-hmm. But, of course, I teach it in my private coaching clients. And if I ever build a website behind a paywall, then I can say, hey, if you're doing the fat loss after 40, then I will teach you that. But other than that, it's, the book doesn't have that. And the thing also is this, when I do the private coaching program, it's not just the lower back. We completely release the range of motion for the whole body. So lower back to me is step one. After we do that, then we release the lower body. So it includes the hamstrings and the calves and all that stuff. And then when we're done with the lower body, then we go and do the upper body. But you've got to start with the lower back first, right? And that's where I am. So the good thing for people is that I wrote this book at the end of the 5 to 6 years where I did all the mistakes. So the book is only the system that works, right? This book is the system that I was getting 100% success rates once I started to implement it.
And I love looking through the reviews too, Eric. There's a lot of great feedback from your readers on the success of the book and everything that goes with it. But that's nice to see is you're definitely hitting a home run with your audience with the book as well.
Yeah, because I think 80% of those reviews were actually the guys who actually did the course. So they go, hey, man, I had to pay $3,000 for this. I can't believe Eric put it all in this book, right? That's why it was easy because, when people ask me, how many people have I worked with? And I go, I would say about 100 because I was working 20 people a year for about 5 years. So 5 times 20 is 100. Right. So this book now has 100 layers of experience. So there's 100 mistakes I made prior to writing the book to now when the person gets it, now it's all streamlined. It's super simple because I realized when you're coaching, you want to make it in this is really great thing I heard once about the difference between teaching and learning. And so teachers who get questioned, they say, well, I stood up and I taught. If everybody got an F, it's on them. They're bad students. They suck. Whereas learning, what you're measuring is what I am transmitting yours now. Do you own, right, what I am trying to transmit? So one's about a teacher saying, well, I spoke, so I taught. No brass, no ammo. I'm out of the loop now. It's all the student's responsibility. And I truly believe we're all responsible. But when you focus on learning, then what I want to know, do you finally own it? Is it yours now? As opposed to, well, Eric says this or Eric says that.
Interesting perspective. I have not heard that very often, Eric. I love that. That's really good. Okay, before I have my last question for you, again, where can everyone connect with you, Eric, to A, buy the book, but also B, where you're most active online so people can connect with you and carry the conversation forward after the episode? Give us that, and then I have a question for you at the end here as well.
Absolutely. So the easiest thing, you can get Phallus After 40 on Amazon.com. And the good thing about that is my friends in Australia and the UK, they can get it because Amazon UK and Amazon Australia, they have a way to get it. And I'm active on Facebook and Instagram, a little bit on LinkedIn. And so I recently retired from the military about a little bit over a year ago. And I am in the process of revamping the coaching system because every year it's a new course, right? Every year I add something new. So, of course, the first time I did it, there was no ultimate human performance system because I hadn't learned it. But now I'm adding ideas that I haven't added in the book, which is the idea of a kidney cleanse. How to do that, for health, not so much for fat loss, but in order to remain as functional and viable, you have to think about keeping the engine clean. Something I remember thinking about, have you ever heard this phrase like cleanliness is next to godliness?
Yeah.
When I heard that, I'd imagine this woman with an apron and the gloves, like cleaning manically at home, like something with like a manic obsessive disorder with cleanliness. But now, if you think about it, everything in the body is fixed through cleaning. Like when you go to the dentist, they do a dental cleaning. And if you have a cavity, they clean it out and then they refill it. What happens when you take your car for servicing? They change the oil in the filter. So how many things in the human body are fixed when you can actually get them to a clean state? So in our case, cleanliness with the liver means that we're pushing kind of like all the debris, which is really cholesterol plugs. It's the cholesterol that kind of blocks the ducts, and all we're doing is we're getting rid of them so there's more space so that the liver works better. By liberating the burden on the body's main detoxifier, you give it space to work on being an organ of metabolism. Does that make sense?
It does. I love it. Okay, so my last question for you, you mentioned to me in our pre-chat, and I really wanted to bring this back here at the end, that when we look at the younger people in the world who are not 40, they're earlier than 40, that there's even sedentary lifestyle within our younger generations, where when we're looking at recruiting and bringing people into the military, not everyone meets the standard to even be part of that because of lifestyle changes and how we live our lives. So for us that are over 40, myself included, as we look to our children and being great examples of how we treat our bodies to be examples to our children, there's this part of our society that even though you're not 40, there's still not a healthy lifestyle. So Can you share that kind of percentage of who is actually has the ability to come into the military based on their current health style and lifestyle? Because it was shocking to hear the percent that you shared with me that are not eligible to come in because of numerous reasons. But that getting into the military is not possible for everyone. Can you share that number?
So I don't know. So what I was told is 20, 30, 40 years ago, whatever, 88% of what they call the military age male, right? 18 to 26 could join the military. So this is to me is a matter of national emergency. So I don't know, back in 2012 or around that time frame, they said that the pool of eligible applicants in that 18 to 26 year range had gone down to 12%. And I go, what? That means that the other 88%, so before it was 88% could go and only 12% couldn't join the military, whether you were flat-footed or you had asthma or you had some kind of, medical condition that would prevent you from joining. Now it's reversed, and 88% of the American youth from 18 to 26 are not medically qualified to join the military. And I was told, but I don't know if this is true, but I was told recently that from 12%, it's gone down to like 8%. So think about this. Only 8% of America's youth from 18 to 26, and that number may be even lower. I don't know. I haven't looked at the number recently because, it's a little bit depressing, but
yeah,
are the only ones that can join the military. So what happens to special ops? Special ops requires not just normal, but abnormal levels of fitness.
right.
So I know there's a guy, Tim Kennedy and David Goggins. That's why they do a lot of trying to motivate people, especially like, if they have an active lifestyle, let's say a wrestler in high school, they have the mental fortitude and they've learned how to eat better, during their conditioning drills, are the kind of people that have a chance about completing, special forces selection courses. But to me, that is just an indicator that whatever we're doing in society right now, we need to really evaluate. Because if that number of eligible applicants to join the military keeps going down, we're going to have a national emergency. We're going to have a national crisis. So going back to what you said, it's up to us, the older people, to set an example for the younger people. And I think a lot of us that are parents now, because I got 4 kids, I think every generation, when they become parents, wants to make their kids' lives better than what they went through, right? I think there was a lot of the unnecessary hardships that, our generations went through, and we want our kids to have a better life. But I think there is a point when making everything too comfortable and too easy is starting to provide diminishing returns, right? We're in an over-medicated, no delay gratification society, right? You want to eat that McDonald's burger, you go eat it now. Oh, and you supersize it too, right? It's like there's no pause in American society for regular people, not just elite level athletes, for regular people to live healthy and to have options for active careers, meaning careers where you're a cop, a firefighter, military, where high levels of physical fitness is a requirement. Because there's the recreational lifter, right? There are people that do workouts for fun. And then a lot of the times what I notice with my friends, they could be super fit in their 20s, then they get married in their 30s and they settle down. They have more responsibilities in their jobs. Now they have kids. A lot of them start eating regularly, because a lot of people when they're young, they don't eat regularly because, their life's a little bit of a mess. Once you get married and you're coming home, hopefully you have a good wife. And therefore, if you're a man, then you're sitting down to eat at the dinner table with your wife and your kids. So some people end up putting a couple of pounds, right? The problem is we need to take all the good we can give our kids, but still give them enough challenges. And also you have to lead by example.
Right.
So my kids all train. I've never forced any of my children to train. They just thought it was normal. What do dads do? Well, my dad has a bunch of gear and he's always doing physical exercise. So now one of my sons really loves boxing. The other loves bodybuilding, but I've never once, berated them or forced them to go to a gym or do any of these things. So we have to set the example, our generation, and we also have to help the younger generation be as fit as they can, not just because they could join the military, but also for self-confidence issues. If you have a young 18, 19, 20-year-old man, they become very self-conscious about their body when they start looking at the opposite sex. Like when they start going from like, man, women are beautiful. I like to get married. I like to have kids. Then all of a sudden this body image thing also plays a part. And, let's face it, if you're overweight and highly estrogenic, it's likely to hurt your fertility, right? So that's why this whole Fat Loss After 40 program has a lot of benefits for people over 40, but there's a lot of things you can do for younger people to ensure that they stay healthy as long as they can,
It's amazing. Okay, so the book, everyone, again, Fat Loss After 40, A Simple System to Reduce Inflammation, Reset Your Body, and Restore Your Health. Eric's here. Eric, amazing stuff. I know that people are going to have to listen to this episode more than once because there's so much good stuff in here from you. And again, everyone reach out. There'll be all the information in the show notes to get in touch with Eric. And I would love for you to go buy the book, leave an amazing review for Eric, and help other people find this book. Share it out, too. If you know someone that is struggling in this area, I'm really excited to have this episode out there, and you can share this with them as well and let them hear Eric's words and connect with Eric as well. Eric, thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's amazing. Everyone check out the show notes, Eric. Thank you so much. And we'll have you back for more on our other podcast because This is not the end of our conversation by any means.
No, only the beginning.
Thanks for checking out Living the Next Chapter. Happy to have you here. And here at the end, I want to just put this shout out to authors listening. If you want to sell more books, if you want to build community, one of the best ways you can do that is by guesting on podcasts and or having your own podcast. So I have a podcast called the How to Podcast series, and I help people start podcasts. I also do editing. I also help with social media, website design. I do all those things in addition to being the host of this podcast and the 6 other podcasts that I do, including How to Podcast series. I think you would be the perfect person to start a podcast. I would love to help you. Head over to howtopodcast.ca, howtopodcast.ca. Reach out, let me know if you're interested in starting a podcast, and I want to work with you. Thanks for listening to Living the Next Chapter. Catch you on the next one. Take care.
Mindshift Power Podcast, the podcast for teenagers and those who work with them. There's a huge problem in America today. There's a very large disconnect between teenagers and the adults who work with them. I'm looking to bridge that gap with real, raw, honest conversation, not held back by the chains of political correctness. You cannot solve a problem you do not understand. Want to understand teenagers today? Listen to this podcast. This podcast is for teens in the U.S. and Canada. To learn more, go to fatimabay.com/podcast or just look for Mindshift Power Podcast on any listening platform. I look forward to you being a faithful listener.